Welcome back to another tutorial. We had a vote on Patreon. I did one for patrons and I said I would do this as well for my YouTube channel, so I think you're going to like this. It's, now I don't know if you could see it behind me, a lovely Irish landscape. It's up around Kerry and it's a beautiful picture of a nice kind of a road going off into the distance with some hills in the background and all that kind of thing. I don't know if you can see that now. So I think this is going to make a very informative tutorial. I'm doing it on a square canvas. It's 400 by 400. I did a quick sketch, very quick sketch, just a couple of lines with some burnt umber, just to get our bearings where we're going to start and all that. I did a bit of masking tape across for the horizon line, and that's it. It's unprimed. I got this canvas in Lidl a while back. A long time ago. They're lovely canvases and they're well primed as well. So I'm looking forward to doing this. So we're ready to go. I hope you enjoy the tutorial. I hope you learn something. And we might make a part 2 out of this. I don't want to rush it too much. So part 1 and part 2, I think, is the safest option. And we can just take our time. So thank you so much. Please do subscribe. If you haven't done so already, you're missing a lot of informative tutorials. And thank you so much for your support as well, patrons. I sincerely appreciate that. And there's lots more over on Patreon if you want to pop over and take a look. So let's crack on. Let's have a bit of fun with this. Don't go anywhere. Okay, here we go. There's a reference photograph. You should see that there. Isn't that beautiful? Lovely colours. And I'm simply going to start from the top and work my way down. I'll tell you what colours I have. Kind of a nice spread of colours. Titanium white, Naples yellow, phaylo blue, magenta, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and black. A nice selection of colours. So let's go. I'm going to take a large brush. I have some turpentine with a little linseed oil. Just a little bit is all you need. I'm going to dampen my brush just quickly, and I'm going to make a nice soft blue for the sky. Let's get some phaylo blue and some white. Put that together now and just make a nice soft blue. I don't want a rich vibrant blue. I want a kind of a blue with a bit of grey as well. So just keep adding little amounts of thinners just to thin this out very slightly as you go. It just gives you a good coverage, that's all. I don't like using thick paint just on its own. It's a good idea to thin paints ever so slightly. So keep adding some white in until you get the colour you want, and maybe a touch of black, I think. Tiny touch of black just to tone that down very slightly. Let's go up and have a look at this. That's not bad. I think I might lighten it ever so slightly. Just a bit, just a little bit. And I'm going to just start painting the sky all the way across. And look, you can do this how you please. If you want to just go with lots of clouds, you can. If you want to just keep it simple, you can do that. Now I'm going to start adding white as it comes down, just white. And I'm going to put a kind of a scrape of white here and there, look. Softening it in. I'll take some more of that. I'm going to add a touch more black, just a touch. Tiny touch. You see how strong that is, how much of a difference that makes. The tiniest little bit of black makes a huge difference. Now we have hills going across here as well, so I don't have to come all the way down with that. And I'm just going to soften that in right across. And to be honest, a lot of these changes in the colour you may not even notice on the canvas as you're looking at it, but it's there. I can see slight little changes here and there on the canvas. Now, we have that lovely blue layer put in. I'm going to start adding a little black and a little touch more blue, just to make it slightly darker in places. It's very dry now. Look, I don't have much. You see that? It's really dry. I've only a tiny little bit on my canvas, or my brush, sorry. I have a tiny little bit. Let's take a little touch more of that. I want to go slightly darker with these colours. Just look, a little bit there like that. A little bit up on that side. And a little bit coming in from here as well. It's just really to add a little something to the sky. I don't want to just a plain colour all the way along. I want to just create a few little clouds off in the distance. Just to soften that all in. There we go, just like that. So we have a couple of tones. You see those little nice soft tones. Now clean the brush. I'll just dip it into my turpentine, give it a dry on the tissue. One thing never to do is to swish your brush around in turpentine like that, because you just ruin the turpentine immediately. So always just scrape it on a tissue, just to get the bulk of the colour out. Now I'm going to go into some white, just white on its own, nice thick paint, look, lovely and thick. And let's just put a little bit of that in here and there, look, just like that. It's really just an impression I'm going after, nothing else, just a simple impression. Little bit up here, look, just to brighten the sky just slightly. And let's go a little bit up here. Scraping it around, you see? Just scraping it around. Nothing too complicated. Just a little dab of the brush here and there. That's all you need. And that's fine. Now I'll clean the brush again. Just give it a rub on some tissue to get most of the colour out. And just soften. Soften some of this back in. And you can use a soft blender brush for this as well if you like, that's a good idea. But look, it's a simple sky. Let's just soften it in with the brush that we have. And we're done. That's the sky finished. Nice and simple, wasn't it? I'm moving on to a slightly smaller brush. I have a number. What number is this? I can't even see. It says a half, but I think it's a number 3 or 4 flat. Moving down to the hills. Now, the photograph in the hills, it looks like there's a lot of detail in there, but I'm just going to simplify the hills, make them nice and soft. Just a nice, again, a nice impression in the background. So I'll try some phaylo blue, and I'm going to try a little bit of burnt umber. So I'm going for a kind of a greeny blue, and then a touch of Naples yellow. And this soft greeny kind of blue colour. Now, it may be a bit too green, so we'll just keep adding touches of blue until we get what we want. Maybe a hint of white as well, and even magenta. And the reason is the pink in the magenta, when mixed with the blue, will give you a lovely distant colour. So any kind of a blue with a little hint of pink in it will always help push something way off into the distance. I'm just going to fill that in, and it does get lighter. So then, as we're coming across, take some Naples yellow into that. And let's see now what we have. And you can see it's even quite wet, isn't it? It's not very dry colour. Now I picked up some Naples yellow here on its own because this is a nice thick colour, and it's going to mix with the colours we have already on the canvas. And it's going to create lovely hues, different kind of tones and all that kind of stuff. And remember, don't try and focus too much on detail. We're not worried about detail. I'm not even thinking about detail. It's just an impression. That's all I want to get. Now, so far we have a nice distant kind of a colour there, don't we? I'm going to start adding some darks. So a little phaylo blue and burnt umber. And maybe a touch of magenta. So I just want to kind of catch some of the dark sides on these. So I'm just going to pop a little bit in and soften it down with the corner of my brush. So imagining the sun is coming from the left hand side, is casting a shadow on the right hand side of these hills, here and there. And we have a nice dark one coming in here as well. And the really nice thing about the oils is that, you know, you can really soften them in together. So I'm just going to kind of bring it down on the light side and just soften it gently with my brush in. Look, nice and gentle. There we go. And already we're seeing some dark in this. So I'm also going to do the same with some lighter shades, and I'm going to take some Naples yellow, and perhaps a little of the white. There's already a bit of blue mixed in, so we end up with a kind of a bright, greeny sort of a colour, okay? I'm just going to pop some of that in, just here and there, and the brush is really creating the impression of the detail for me. So I'm allowing the hair to the brush just to kind of dance around and create that light. Now over here we have a nice light as well, don't we? Kind of cutting across the landscape. And we don't have to go too far with this. I really, you know, do just be careful. You don't have to go very far with this. I'm just going to take some blue, some magenta, and a little white. And I just want to add a little mauve, a kind of a pinky purpley colour, into some of the hills. Again, just to create some depth in the hills. That's really all I want to do. And that kind of purpley colour will really help. So I'm just going to dry my brush off now and soften these back in again. I'm sort of dabbing, you know, I'm kind of scraping and dabbing the colour around here and there. That's all I'm doing. It's a very random kind of effect. And I think that's fine. That's all I need to do. We don't have to go to too much trouble with all of this. Let's remove our masking tape. Now we also have a little bit of land over there in the distance, don't we? Let's pop a little bit of land in. Let's get some green. So I'll just give this brush a quick wipe again. It's not spotless. I'll take some cadmium yellow. And you can see, because we had blue on this already, now it's turning a kind of a green colour, isn't it? And a little touch of the bluey green and some Naples yellow. The only reason I add Naples yellow into some of these colours is to thicken it up, because on their own they're quite transparent. So the Naples yellow thickens it up and it just gives it a nice thick colour that you can work on. So I'm simply going to just kind of scrape this little bit of light green across under these hills. And at the same time when I'm doing that now, I'm going to start thickening the colour with some Naples yellow and cadmium yellow, and I'm going to start dragging that up into the hills. So this is all going to kind of disappear up into the hills. You see, just where the two meet, I'm going to just soften that colour in. So there's not a kind of direct line in between the two. I'm scraping the paint up into the hills slightly, you see that? So you end up with this nice soft transition from top to bottom. Now I'm also going to do the very same with some dark green. So some black and some cadmium yellow and some burnt umber perhaps. I'm going to just kind of drag a little bit of dark green here and there across the base of that where they meet. Maybe a touch of the blue. Go a little bit of a darker colour if you like. And I'm very lightly touching the canvas. You see this? I'm just kind of letting the tip of the brush just sort of scrape along the canvas just here and there, softening the colour in. And we're basically just creating kind of light spots and dark spots here and there on the green. Oh, okay. You know, you don't have to be absolutely perfect with all of this. This is all very distant, you see? Just scraping it along, and you're creating little impressions of details off in the distance. What I do want is a nice dark line somewhere, and the reason for that is simply to separate the water from the land. That's really the only reason. So I have a little bit of black here and a bit of brown on my brush, look, and I'm just going to just tap that in here and there, just to give a nice little separation. Again, I'm not thinking about detail. There's no detail in the background of this. I'm not thinking about detail at all. So I think that's fine. I think that's enough. We could add, if we want, little hints of maybe a beach or something over in the distance. So if we just take some Naples yellow with some white, we could just add a little hint of one just here and there, because I would be familiar with the area, so I know there's lots of beaches off in the distance over there. So I'm just going to pop a few little brush strokes in here and there, look. Just one or two. And you can see already it's just giving that little impression, which is what I want, a little impression. Well, moving down to the water, I'm going to go for a slightly bigger brush. I'm not going for the big one. I suppose I could, but let me check. Yeah, we'll go with the big one, look, all together. Let's just try this one. A nice greeny blue again. Phaylo blue. A little bit of white. We take a touch of black. So I'm not going for a vibrant blue in this colour. Everything is going to be a soft, kind of a landscape colour. So soft blues. That's not bad. I take a little white. So pop a little white into it, and I'm going to just go across under that line. So you can see I'm just kind of softening this slightly across the line where they meet. I don't want a very solid line again, so I'm going to just very gently soften some of that colour into the water. Very, very gently. And I'm going to start then adding a little texture to this. So I pick up some phthalo blue and a little black. And I'm just going to start darkening this a little bit as it comes down. Because generally with things like this, they get darker as they come closer to you. And that helps also with perspective. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of dark colour in here. You can see the way I'm scraping this onto my canvas now. It's very dry. I'm not using a lot of thick paint because I like to be able to control my paint on the canvas, and I don't want a very messy canvas. So a little bit of a dark now coming across there. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, that's all right. And the next, we have some rocks and all that kind of thing coming into the painting, don't we? But before I do that, I'm just going to grab my flat knife. I'm going to take a little white, just a little bit of white. It doesn't matter if there's a bit of blue on this now, it doesn't matter. I just want to create a little impression of just some breakage in the water, that's all. Way off in the distance, look. I'm just scraping it left and right, and I'm allowing the canvas to kind of grab the paint every now and then. Just a touch. And it also gives you the impression of detail without actually painting detail. And that's what I love about painting. It's leaving your brain fill in the blanks, so to speak. So you can see already now that's giving us a little bit of texture, isn't it? So I'll take my small brush. I'm going to go for some burnt umber and some black. And I'm making this nice and creamy. It's a nice creamy, rich, creamy colour. I don't want to go too thick because this will allow me then to get nice, solid kind of shapes. Let's go just like that. Look, a couple of little bits and pieces out there. Just sort of coming in, and it just disappears into the background then, doesn't it? I'll take a bit of black. A bit of black there. Just to show those little bits of rocks breaking up on the water, popping up here and there. And it's really just to help with perspective as well. Just little tiny bits of black on the tip of my brush, look, just dab, dab, dab. Just like that. And then again, I'm going to just grab my palette knife with some white and just put a little dab. And what I'm doing is just sitting all this down. And create a little bit of water breaking off there in the distance. And there we are. And that's all we need to do, my friends. We don't need to go to too much trouble with all of this. If you want to add a little bit more texture into the water, you can. You could just grab some phaylo blue with some of this blacky burnt umber kind of a colour, maybe a bit of black, and perhaps a hint of Naples yellow, just to lighten it slightly, and just creating a very dark greeny kind of a blue colour. You could just go like this. Again, scraping along just to create a little bit of texture and softening it up. Left and right, just to create some texture in the water and either go off up there and disappear. And this will just give a little bit of interest in the water. You don't have to go too much with this. You don't have to go crazy. It's just a little bit. And there we go. Time to move on already down to this second piece. And this is where all the nice detailed work will come into play. So that's part one finished. What do you think about that? Nice and simple. Try it. Just keep it simple, and I'm going to move on to part two. I'll be right back with part two, and we'll concentrate on this bottom half. Lots of strong shadows and rich greens, and we'll do a lot of work with the fan brush as well. So yeah, stay tuned. I'll be right back.